After learning that I opened a bag luxury handbag boutique, cousin's son every time he came to take a razor blade to secretly scratch. Opened a year. Scratched my 4 bags. The loss of more than 10,000. I was angry to the police. Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda. But the children do not understand things to say things. Randomly with something to me. This time I did not stare. My little nephew scratched 7 or 8 designer brand bags in a row. Cousin Jake, 2 people know. Do not care. But also in praise of the son has the strength. I laughed and forgot to tell them that I sold the store half a month ago. My brother's child baby shower celebration are almost open. Also did not see cousin Jake, Aunt Linda family. My father made several phone calls to cousin Jake before he answered, and when he opened his mouth, he was full of impatience. Uncle, what's the hurry? Besides, who remembers which hotel you are having the party in? Although I was a bit dissatisfied, I was still arranged to pick up cousin Jake's family, which happened to be near the luxury handbag boutique I opened before. When I arrived at the place, I just witnessed my little nephew sneaking around the luxury handbag boutique and scratching his bag. I scared out of a cold sweat. This luxury handbag boutique can and I opened before the small fuss different. People, this is designer brand bag luxury handbag boutique. Little nephew saw me, then ran out of the store. He was like a grown-up with his arms folded, spitting at me to make a ghost face. Stinky woman, let you last time to sue. I want to your home bag all scratched. I am a little angry and a little fortunate. Not long ago I just put this store disc out. This luxury handbag boutique has no relationship with me. Little nephew before is also love in my store scratch bag, but did not get any lesson. So today over will be more unscrupulous. A designer brand bag, less to say large tens of thousands of dollars. The little nephew again yelled mom and dad and ran into the jewelry store next door in a frenzy. I followed him into the jewelry store next door and found cousin Jake and Aunt Linda looking at gold necklaces. My father then sent me a message asking cousin Jake, Aunt Linda how she was doing, and that it was about to start, so it seemed a bit bad to start without waiting for them. After all, their family is always so grumpy, and they love to stir up trouble. But it's not a good idea to keep waiting for them. There are so many other relatives out there. Aunt Linda watched me finish looking at my cell phone, and smiled smugly at me. Lin, how about it? Seeing as your store has been doing well lately, do yourself a favor and get one too. No, Aunt Linda, have you finished buying yet? Let's go to the banquet soon. Just waiting for you guys. I refused outright, pondering whether to tell them that my little nephew had scratched his bag again. Who knows, Aunt Linda snorted. I think you become a boss can still have a few money. Who knows, or so shabby body even a decent jewelry are not. My family Mimi neck have a diamond pendant it. I held back my anger, told them that my little nephew scratched the bag of things to the back of my mind. Just urged them to hurry to eat the seat, and then so dilly-dallying it'll go over first. Cousin Jake was not at all impressed. What's the point of dilly-dallying? It's just a poor man's son's full moon. It's not a big deal. We're all giving face to him. What's the hurry? Let's arrange for the banquet to start a little later. My little nephew saw me being treated like this. His eyes turned, and he kicked me directly. Get lost. Don't stand here to make my mom angry. My mom said that seeing you less fortunate relatives will make me sick to my stomach. I was furious and wanted to teach him a lesson. Who knew that Aunt Linda directly blocked in front of me, praising my little nephew. My baby is great. Now kicking people with so much strength. Go back to give you more food. Grow a little more. Hit people even more powerful. Cousin Jake looked at my cold face and said, the child is joking with you. Do you have to put on a bad face? Quickly take us to the banquet. I would like to ask the great uncle how to let people come to pick us up and still look like a bad face. Hee hee. I simply angry laugh. Turn around and go. Do not care if they follow me. When I walked to the next door, I saw a clerk with a horrified face holding one of the bags scratched by my little nephew, and with a yell, I ran towards the other clerks at the counter. Looks like this was discovered and they must be investigating security footage to go. I see this time cousin Jake, Aunt Linda can still fool around without losing money. Just the clerk in the hands of the bag are more than 200,000 yuan. And the little nephew scratched off more than this one. That store was originally graduated after I and my rich second-generation roommate partnership. Roommate is mainly responsible for the money investment. I am mainly responsible for the management. My family's background is average. My roommate is not short of money generous. So in the management of the store is basically me in the labor. In the beginning, the store opened very well, although the business is not particularly prosperous. But then I go out to look for work, grunt work to earn more. Until cousin Jake brought his little nephew to the store. They didn't buy anything in my store. They just pointed with disgust. Aunt Linda also asked with a malicious face. I see that you don't earn much by opening a store, so why are you messing around? It would be better for you to come to work in our store. I can give you an extra 500 for your salary. What kind of business are you doing as a little girl? Don't lose your mom and dad's retirement savings. And then you'll have to borrow money from us. Cousin Jake's family was poorer than my family before, and they used to come to my house for freeload. Later on, I don't know what kind of dumb luck they had, but they won $1 million in the lottery. And since then, their life has been better, and they even opened an upscale grill house. From then on, Cousin Jake's family became high and mighty and started to look down on us less fortunate relatives. I didn't get too involved with Aunt Linda's explicit and implicit taunts, but after they left, I realized that one of the bags in the store had been deliberately scratched. Afterwards, I adjusted the security footage, and soon found that my nephew took a small blade and secretly scratched it off while Aunt Linda was talking to me. This bag to a good few $100. I do not want to eat this dumb loss, not to mention the store is not my one person. So I called several times to explain the situation. But they not only do not recognize the next, but also the attitude is getting worse and worse. I just had to run to their home to find. I pulled my little nephew, just gently asked why they want to scratch my store bag. Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda immediately distressed to pull them to their side. Cousin Jake ferociously cold look at me. Just you still as a cousin aunt it. Their own nephew's son's trouble are looking for. Really, I look down on you, these less fortunate relatives, is for a reason. I really didn't understand how I could be considered a troublemaker for my nephew, but they didn't give me a chance to explain. Aunt Linda's face was impatient. Even if my son scratches your broken bag, what can it cost? Little boys are just at the age of playfulness, and our family's living expenses for 2 or 3 days are over $10,000. The little nephew saw that he had not been punished a little bit, but instead, his mom and dad could not look at me as a cousin aunt. So he became even more emboldened. He left cousin Jake Aunt Linda's side and kicked at me. The little boy's force is not light. This kick directly on my stomach. Immediately I sucked in a breath of cold air in pain. I backhanded my little nephew and dragged him by the hand. But I couldn't really do anything. I just said with a fierce expression, "Apologize to your cousin Aunt Me." This was a shock to the kid. But cousin Jake Aunt Linda immediately opened my hand in pain. Okay. You're a grown-up. A child is playing with you. You still have to apologize. Really do not know shame. My little nephew is a smart one. He immediately threw the things I brought over to the door, and told me to get out of his house in a dignified manner. My father's mother has said that you all smell of poverty, and told me to sniff less. So why don't you go now? And don't come to my house in the future either. Cousin Jake Aunt Linda's family cynicism is enough for me. If not for something, I would never come to their house easily. I would never have come to their house if it wasn't for something. They ruined my bag and didn't even pay for it. What kind of reasoning is that? Even though I didn't want to stay a moment longer, I was still reluctant to do so. So I just crossed my heart and decided not to leave until I got the compensation. It was only after the stalemate that cousin Jake Aunt Linda offered to compensate me with something from her own house. So they kicked me out of the house with an ashtray in my hand. They said the ashtray was a brand name item, cost $5,000, and that it would be more than enough to sell used to compensate for my bag. But when I took it to sell, I realized that it was a knockoff, not worth the money at all. When I went to look for them later, I found that the whole family was not at home. Surprisingly, in order not to want to compensate me for a few $100s of the bag. Directly spent a large amount of money to buy a plane ticket to the whole family out of the country to travel. There is no way. I was angry and hate. I made up for the hundreds of dollars. Since then I'm more wary of their family to my store. But still buy the little nephew got 2 times. He even seems to know the goods. Scratched the bag more and more expensive. The back of the bag are a few $1,000s. Opened a year. Scratched my 4 bags. The loss of over 10,000. I also called the police. But ultimately nothing. So I was furious. After getting the consent of my roommate, the store was disked out. The new store owner is opened a brand bag luxury handbag boutique. Then I thought I do not know so expensive bag little nephew still not dare to scratch. I didn't expect him to let me down. Cousin Jake Aunt Linda's family drove behind me and slowly came to the hosting a banquet place. My father and brother greeted them with smiles and called the waiter to open the table. Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda and her family were rightfully seated at the VIP table. And I was very uncomfortable to see their faces slumped over in disgust with my brother's choice of venue. But once the food was served, they were against lazy Susan, who turned to her side and didn't allow the other relatives to turn and take the food away. The relatives were a bit upset, and my nephew even grabbed the food with his hands, making a mess. One of the elders said, "Zhou Lao Air's family, this table is full of people. You control your children." Aunt Linda did not stop, but also smiled and said, "Oh, my son loves to eat. And it's time for him to grow up. What do you mind?" The other relatives couldn't do anything about the family, and with an embarrassed look, they whispered, "This is too much of a rule breaker." The little nephew also followed the coaxing. My father said, "At the dinner table is usually the rich people eat first. The poor people watch us eat well before eating. You do not move chopsticks and I grab." This words out of everyone's face instantly. The moment these words were uttered, everyone's face instantly became ugly. I was on the side and said in a conspiratorial manner, "Cousin Jake, your family is really so rich, ah. The little nephew was made to be so uneducated is also deserved, but so young to have no manners. Don't grow up to commit adultery," everyone shouted. Cousin Jake Aunt Linda immediately stopped. Aunt Linda slammed her chopsticks down and yelled at me, "Lily Johnson, shut your mouth. What kind of family education is that? Our family is rich. We don't need to be poor. You'd better be polite to my son, so that he won't make a lot of money in the future. You'll have to queue up to flatter him." Cousin Jake also chimed in, "That's right. We're not like you. We don't need you to lecture us. If you want to lecture us, why don't you make some money like our family? If I were as poor as you are, I would be so worried that I wouldn't be able to eat, and I would still be here earning a plate of food." All the relatives at the table were filled with anger. They looked up at my brother and my father, but for the sake of the host family, they did not take offense. Just then my father and my brother came to toast all the relatives with their wine glasses. They also heard Cousin Jake Aunt Linda's speech, although a little angry, but still can only make a big deal. My father held the glass and said politely, "Today is my grandson's first birthday. Thank you for coming. Hooray to all of you." Everyone expressed their congratulations. Those who drank. Those who didn't also poured drinks instead. Only Cousin Jake Aunt Linda didn't even move her eyelids. Even after my father and my brother finished their drinks, Cousin Jake extended the empty cup in his hand and faintly instructed, "Great uncle, if you pour me a drink, then I'll give you face and have a drink." My father felt a little embarrassed, but still forced himself to pour Cousin Jake a drink. Seeing this, my little nephew actually followed suit and raised his glass high. "Old man, pour me one too." Aunt Linda was full of smugness and said, "My son really has an aura. He will definitely be more successful than us in the future." I was trembling with anger, and a surge of fury bubbled up in my chest. They were simply bullying people too much. I grabbed the glass in my nephew's hand and threw it to the ground, overturning the wine in Cousin Jake's glass. Cousin Jake was furious. "Lily Johnson, what are you doing? If you really think my family is poor, don't come to my baby shower celebration. And you don't follow the rules and disgust people. Who are you? If it wasn't for the luck of the lottery, Your family would be worrying about money. So why are you so proud of yourselves? I retorted in a louder voice. And all of a sudden I was arguing with Cousin Jake and Aunt Linda. The crowd exploded and came over to our table. My father advised me to restrain my temper. Don't be too impulsive. Don't fight with them. Some relatives said that Cousin Jake's family is indeed too ostentatious. But there are some relatives who see that Cousin Jake's family has a little bit of money and purposely give them a face. In the end, it was my brother who stood up with a serious face and subdued the scene. Everyone lost interest in the meal, and the relatives who were angry with Aunt Linda's family even ate a few bites and then stopped eating. I am more directly cannot eat. Looking at Cousin Jake family feel the heart straight guilty of nausea. This time luxury handbag boutique clerk gave me a phone call. I expected. Directly opened the speakerphone. Only to see her some anxious voice came. Lin sister. Store bag again like before by your side of the little nephew scratched. Scratched 4 or 5. The loss of quite a large. Has been reported to the police. What can we do? If your relatives don't pay up this time, I'm afraid I won't be able to keep my job. I looked at Cousin Jake Aunt Linda, who remained indifferent, and directly sent the store clerk the location, asking her to bring the police to me. The clerk was a senior staff member who had been there before when I opened the store. And they must have panicked when they watched the store and made such a big mistake when the new owner hadn't even taken over for a few months yet. My mom has been helping my brother to take care of the children. Beforehand Cousin Jake a family quarrel she did not squeak. Just at this moment heard my store bag was scratched again. Finally could not help but anger said, really open eyes. There are always some thick-skinned cannot control their own children's hands. This is a child on this kind of behavior. I do not know how much trouble to grow up. Aunt Linda immediately exploded, pointing at my mom's nose and asking, who are you talking about here? If you ever talk about my son again, I'll rip your mouth off. My mom was very angry, but because she was holding the child, she didn't dare to continue the argument, and after enduring it, she didn't retort anymore. How much did you lose this time? My mom asked with some pain in her heart, as she hadn't been able to get any compensation back from Cousin Jake's family for the last few times. She didn't expect much this time either. My family doesn't even know that I sold the store. I haven't said anything yet. Cousin Jake has spoken up beforehand. How much can you lose? Lin sister. Not that I'm saying you open a store but you make it look like a poor man. Your nephew goes to play with you a few packages as if it's killing you. It's just a little money. Not that money. See today's big day. Not to mention do brothers bullying you. This time my son scratched the bag I will give you compensation. I simply angry laugh. Before my family bag cheap. Although indeed not what shocking loss. But Cousin Jake your family is compensation said so lightly. Not move your family look down on my little money. This time, you love to pay, he said. This time, you love to compensate or not. I do not care to get involved with you. As soon as I heard that I didn't care about losing money, Cousin Jake's family was indifferent. But my father's mom was anxious. Lin, it's not easy for you to earn some money. Why don't you care about it, you child? If you are afraid of trouble, Mom and Dad will help you get it this time, and you can count the losses properly. My mom handed the child out, a heart to stand up for me. She stared at the little nephew dissatisfaction. Yang, you this kid, said how many times do not get cousin Aunt's store bag. Why do you not listen? But my nephew wasn't afraid of my mom at all. I won't listen to you, you old woman. If you keep staring at me, I'll gouge your eyes out. Such rude and vicious words from a 6 or 7-year-old child. But his parents didn't feel the slightest bit uncomfortable, but stood on the side and watched with indifference. My father was so angry that he didn't even want to say anything. He just pointed at Cousin Jake's family and told them that they were going to pay me back every penny this time. Lin, how much did you lose? My father asked again. I was indifferent. I don't know. I heard it's $2 to $3 million. We'll have to wait for the clerk to come here to talk about it. Mom and Dad froze when I said it. They were aware of the value of the goods in the store. This wouldn't cost $2 or $3 million even if all the bags in the store were destroyed. Mom and Dad looked at me with a somewhat puzzled gaze. while Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda and the two of them laughed outright. Cousin Jake couldn't help but mock. I thought relatives, this time to help you out of the loss. Did not expect you want money, want crazy. 2 or 3 million, why don't you go to rob? Or simply say a few tens of millions chanting. I'm sure there's a reason why I'm poor. Aunt Linda also followed the mockery, but also deliberately pulled over the little nephew, asked, Son, you tell me how you scratched the bag. My son is really smart and powerful. When my nephew heard his mom praising him, he immediately became bullish and his head went up to the sky. He directly stood on the stool, proudly recounted. Those stupid women are blind as hell. I just swished through. My father's face becomes iron blue. There is also a hint of pain. Cousin Jake as he watched grow up. He did not expect relatives. Cousin Jake's family has become this way. Cousin Jake is my father's second sister's child. Before the little nephew began to scratch the bag, my father, because of the relatives of the family, did not help me to argue compensation. He has always felt a little guilty, and then appeared for the second time to scratch the bag. My father to help go to Cousin Jake's home, but then pounced on a blank. My father and my second aunt also had a private nasty. Today my family set up a birthday party. My second aunt and uncle did not come over. The relatives who have better relations have also been watching us bickering from the sidelines. And originally they have always been on our side. But after hearing me say $1 or $2 million, they also began to persuade me up. Lin, you don't gamble, or seriously talk about it. Before your family store thing we also heard about. Now most of the relatives are in. You report the loss. Everyone together to help you solve it. Cousin Jake pulled out his own cell phone and said impatiently, How much is it? Forget it. Enough to waste time. My cell phone wants to get a new one, so I'll just credit this one to you. Used iPhone's still worth a few $1,000s. Enough to compensate you. I shook my head. Cousin Jake, that's really not enough money, and there's no point in you giving it to me. That store is no longer relevant to me. Cousin Jake thought it was too little for me. It's not enough. How much is your bag worth? I'll give you a free hot pot if you come to our restaurant from now on. Aunt Linda thought I had taken advantage of her and said, You are so kind. If you are like Lily Johnson, you won't be able to eat hot pot even a few times a year. So why do you have to be such a good old boy? If this loss was mine, I would have been furious and spewed fire. But now looking at Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda's arrogant statement, I actually want to laugh a little. Cousin Jake's family got rich on lottery money, opened upscale grill house, and then invested in several snack bars one after another. And I used to hear that they could really make a lot of money a year. But definitely not to millions of profits. And because Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda is lazy, these years are not much management store thinking about getting ahead. Peer competition is fierce. The business is not as red hot as before. And because they used to be poor and afraid, rich after spending a lot of money, these years to buy a car, to buy a house, Aunt Linda to engage in personal maintenance, to spa, send money, and now their family basically do not have a lot of cash flow in hand. Really want to compensate. A time $2 or $3 million still cannot come out. Cousin Jake want to take the phone so offset. Just want to go. The store clerk with the police came in a storm. The police stopped Cousin Jake's family and took out their IDs, saying, We've received a report of a large amount of money here, and we need to understand the situation and mediate. Seeing the police out, Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda was still a little scared. But they are not afraid of me, pulled me to the side and directly roared, Just this little thing. You let the police come. It is really shameful. You are not shameful, we are still shameful. I directly ignored them, and after seeing the new store manager, I directly introduced Cousin Jake, Aunt Linda to the new store manager. The new store manager was a friend of my rich roommate, so she was quite polite to me. She said directly, The counter was scratched with 6 bags. The total value is more than $3 million, so let's just round it up to $3 million. The new store manager took out my nephew's scratched bags one by one and handed them to me. You can check these bags first. Cousin Jake pulled over my father and said in a bad tone, Great uncle, Cousin Lynn is not really crazy. The police are going to be called and still dare to blackmail people. I know you don't have much education, but you don't have to educate your daughter like this. I'm really not in the mood to mess with you guys, so do whatever you want. Aunt Linda directly yelled. This broken luxury handbag boutique. Some of them are still pirated. I advise everyone to stay away from Lily Johnson's family, or else they will scare you to death with a fake handbag. I pulled my father back and couldn't stand it any longer. Don't throw dirty water on me. I said it's none of my business whether you compensate or not. This store is not mine. I have discharged it with my roommate earlier. And this is the store manager. The store manager heard that it is a fake bag. Some angry. My store bag how is fake? The police are here. Afraid you do not want to compensate. I also deliberately will be genuine documents are with all. You do not believe it is their own look ah. Aunt Linda is a buyer of luxury goods. She opened the bag to check with no concern. And at this glance, her face instantly became unnatural. She quietly pulled over Cousin Jake and said, "Hubby, these bags seem to be real. And what the store manager is wearing is indeed designer brand. Is our baby really in trouble?" The police also came up at this time to confirm that this store is indeed this MS. Guans, your son damaged other people's property. You really need to negotiate compensation for things. But we can only help you to coordinate from the police. The specific processing also have to look at your own two sides of the. After Cousin Jake heard this, he gave Aunt Linda a look, and both of them tacitly stopped mentioning the matter of compensation. On the contrary, the next said, "What compensation is not compensation? This bag we are the first time to see. Who knows how bad? My son can be obedient and understand the matter. How can he be scratched?" Cousin Jake Aunt Linda stared at me again and asked, "You really don't own this store anymore?" When they saw me nodding, they seemed to accept the fact that the store had been sold out. However, they felt that I had not notified their family in advance, and holding their breath, they gave me some severe verbal abuse. The store manager didn't want to worry about the complicated relationship between our families, but just frowned at Cousin Jake Aunt Linda and said, "You guys don't want to pay for the damages." Aunt Linda attitude tough. "Big sister, do people have to be conscientious? Cannot be wrongly accused of people, right? You say my son did it is my son did it. I also said that you have killed and set fire to the house." I stood out and said sarcastically, "Cousin Jake Aunt Linda, look at what you guys are saying. Didn't you say at the beginning that your son scratched the bag and you could afford to pay for it casually? Just now, you were saying that we poor people would never let go of a broken bag. But now that the store owner is here, why are you suddenly denying it? You can't afford it, can you? What are you talking about?" Cousin Jake looked furious and grabbed me by my clothes and made a gesture to hit me. I was so scared that I ran to the side, and the police and my parents came out to stop Cousin Jake. My relatives, who had never liked Cousin Jake's condescending behavior, gloated when they realized that their family was in real trouble. "We just heard it. Originally thought it was Lily Johnson's store. Your family directly admitted that your son scratched it, to take what broken cell phone to compensate. Now how to deny it? That's right. Isn't he a big boss? He has always said that he is rich and wealthy, but it turns out that he is putting on a facade of wealth so that everyone has seen a good show." Cousin Jake Aunt Linda was so angry that she wanted to drive her relatives away. But they refused to leave and said in front of the police and the store manager that they would not spare Cousin Jake's family and that they were willing to testify that Cousin Jake's son had admitted to the fact that he had scratched the bag. The store manager was ridiculed by Cousin Jake's Aunt Linda, but was embarrassed by the overly warm and kind relatives. "Thank you all for your kindness and willingness to help me testify, but I have security footage video here. The family can't run away. Don't worry," he said. Cousin Jake Aunt Linda no matter how much more sophistry. The store manager took out the video and also knew that the scratch or not can't be shrugged off with a few words. So Cousin Jake immediately changed his face and said with a smile on his face, "Store manager, the child is still small. He must be unintentional. You are a generous man, and you are such a rich boss. Don't bother with the child." Aunt Linda also chimed in. "Yes, yes, yes. You see my child is so cute, usually very good. Probably just playing around and not thinking too much." Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda pulled her nephew in front of the store manager and asked him to apologize and say a few good words. But her nephew was just a lawless person, so it was absolutely impossible to make him apologize. The little nephew turned his head to the side, and even spat directly at the store manager. Bah! What are you? My father's mother said. I do everything right. I'm not going to apologize to you. The store manager looked at the child, who was not polite at all, and said with some displeasure, all right. Your child, I see, like this is not any obedient master. Where is the slightest bit of admitting fault? Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda became anxious and yelled at her nephew. What are you doing? I told you to apologize. If you don't apologize, you'll be in trouble. The little nephew, who had never suffered such an offense, immediately burst into tears. He yelled about bad people and made his parents angry. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda's face turned green when she saw how uncooperative her little nephew was. The store manager was a little helpless by the little kid's crying. Don't embarrass the kid. I don't need this apology from him. I know this is not the first time he scratched the bag. When you look at the former store manager is a relative, deliberately bullying people, and do not properly educate the child, fooling around, and now the child aggravated. But also you parents themselves at the outset not properly educate the fault. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda listened, dared to be angry, just a hard to apologize to the store manager himself. Don't say so much. You should pay for the damages. The store manager didn't want to waste any more time with them, and after finishing in a tough manner, he directly took out the list and showed it to Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda's face froze when she took the list. It was more than $3 million. Cousin Jake still want to try to fight for a bit. Store manager, our family conditions are general. All of a sudden come up with so much money to compensate is really a bit difficult. You see, or not a discount. Compensation of several $100,000. Okay. Aunt Linda also began to play poor, wiping up her non-existent tears, and even knelt down to the store manager on the spot. The store manager was shocked. Her family is not bad money. Also heard of my family, Cousin Jake's family situation. How could she not expect to even a few million let them want to kneel down? A moment of time, a little at a loss. I immediately blocked in front of the store manager. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda, your family is still not well off. This is not every day to mock us less fortunate relatives. If you don't compensate, don't blame the store manager for going through the legal process. And then it won't be a matter of compensation, said the store manager. The store manager also hurriedly replied, yes. If you don't compensate me, I'll leave and let my attorney come to you next time. When Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda heard that they were going to be sued, she knew that it would not be easy to fool them. The thought of such a large sum of money gave them a headache. Cousin Jake even took out his anger on his little nephew. He slapped his little nephew hard on the ear and said fiercely, you bastard. The things in the house are not enough for you to wreak havoc. How dare you go to someone else's store to do it? Aunt Linda saw her little nephew was slapped. Her heart ached so much that she hurriedly protected her little nephew and said, the child is still young. Just talk to him properly. Why do you hit him? The little nephew has not been beaten and scolded since he was born. Today he had to apologize and was beaten. The whole person could not stand it. He pushed Aunt Linda away and cried with a broken heart. I'm not right. It was Mom and Dad themselves who said it was okay to go to Aunt Linda's store and scratch the bag. You guys don't keep your word. You bully the baby. You're all bad people. The nephew lost his temper and kicked Cousin Jake and Aunt Linda in a frenzied manner. He was crying so hard he couldn't catch his breath. Aunt Linda can still withstand being kicked. Just a strong cry. Cousin Jake is a little angry, but directly kicked the little nephew hard. The nephew finally quieted down and covered his kicked stomach in horror, not daring to make any more noise. Those of us present watched this farce with amusement. I almost laughed out loud. Cousin Jake, look at you. What kind of domestic violence tendency ah? In the past the little nephew's mistakes do not educate. But now in front of the group to let everyone see the joke it. I know that Cousin Jake would like to kick my ass, and his gnashing of teeth made me feel good. But Cousin Jake held his tongue and nicely negotiated with the store manager about the total amount of damages and the time. The store manager left with the police. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda, however, did not leave, but began to smile all over his face and said to my father with a bit of currying favor, "Uncle, look at this mess. The compensation is so much. Can you lend me $1 million? My father didn't expect that he could be so brazen as to borrow money from our family in the blink of an eye after having just quarreled with us and being on the verge of a fight. Seeing my father did not say anything, Cousin Jake rushed to me again. "Lynn, sister, you also know that our upscale grill house sales situation. The cost is big. The money earned are to maintain the cost of expenses. This moment and a half really cannot come up with so much money. You look at the two of us grew up on the love of relatives to help us through this difficult time." Aunt Linda's voice was also filled with a bit of pleading. "Yes, cousin, there is no such thing as an overnight grudge between relatives, and we should still have a good relationship in the future. Their family has a car and a house. Obviously they can sell the car and house to pay back the money. It is still far from the need to borrow money. But they just can't let go of the current life." I didn't sympathize with them in the slightest and refused to squeal. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda dragged in other relatives for another loan, and everyone tacitly refused to say a word. The family then realized that in the past few years, they had offended all their relatives. I suddenly said, "We can help you borrow a little money, but not $1 million, only 300,000. But I want you to admit your mistake. Your son cut my store bag of money first. Transfer me. Not much, only 10,000 yuan. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda hesitated and transferred the money to me. After receiving the money, I laughed out loud. "Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda, I lied to you. I don't have $300,000. You'd better find someone else." Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda's face was twisted for a moment, but in the end, they didn't get angry. And they saw that they couldn't borrow the money and left. The store manager gave them a week's notice, so they must have thought of something else. I heard later that Cousin Jake went back to the store with his parents and went to all his relatives to borrow money, but invariably none of them lent them any money. My father shook his head and sighed. "You can't do that. They have no one to blame but themselves for this situation." Back in the old days, our family and Cousin Jake's family got along very well, but since Cousin Jake's family's pockets have grown, they really don't care about their old relatives. Even when Grandpa died, they wouldn't come back to see him for the family trip. Now that they've fallen on hard times, they can't rely on a few kind words and gifts to undo the foolishness of the past. Cousin Jake. Aunt Linda eventually sold the house and paid the money back. After they had no relatives to lend them money, they were so angry that they threatened to cut ties with all of us. Although they don't have the house, they still have the upscale grill house. They made a new rule in the store. If we less fortunate relatives go to eat hot pot, they have to charge double the price. When I heard the news, I was speechless by the way they did it. Is he the only hot pot in town? They were so arrogant, as if they didn't want to eat there. They suddenly started to work hard, interfered in the management of the store, dismissed the management staff and went to work themselves. In order to control costs, all the ingredients were replaced with inferior ones. At first, they made more money and were still smug, but then the customers were poisoned by the food. And it was investigated and reported that all the substandard ingredients in the store were reported. After everyone knew that the store is not good, go to the people also less, coupled with the management chaos. The staff is not happy, always changing people. Not long, Cousin Jake's store cannot support, even closed down. Cousin Jake's other investments in small stores. Cousin Jake is not much better, and gradually his family business is all gone. Cousin Jake and Aunt Linda, who had no skill, had no other way to earn a living. And gradually they were no better than our relatives who worked hard. I heard later that they were back to their old home doing the same hard labor to make ends meet. Occasionally, when relatives see Cousin Jake's son, they say that his son has changed a lot. He is not noisy anymore, but has become coy and looks very timid.